All right, so we're diving in. Today, we're going to check out DIY indoor gardening.
Ah, nice.
Yeah, and specifically, this cool guide, it's all about building like a full-on grow box from, get this, a plastic storage container.
Oh, wow. From scratch. Okay.
Yeah, the kind you probably have like shoves in a corner of your garage.
Totally, yeah.
And the whole thing is surprisingly like doable and clever. We're going to kind of break down, why it's so interesting.
You know, what I think is really cool about this is that it's more than just like a weekend project.
Hmm.
It kind of ties into this whole trend, people wanting to like grow their own food more and be closer to nature even if they live in a city.
For sure, for sure. And our DIR here, they start with like the basics, right? You've got your plastic container,
Yeah.
LED lights, a 12V cooling fan, just your typical tools. And they even mentioned like finding the container super cheap,
Mhm.
which, is great for anyone on a budget.
Yeah, that's smart. And I mean, this whole thing kind of feels like a pushback, against those like pre-made kits that cost a fortune.
Oh, totally.
There's something really satisfying about doing it yourself, especially when it's something as important as, food.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of satisfying, this creator, they are totally obsessed with their stepped drill bit.
Okay.
They make it sound like the best tool ever. Like
Yeah.
it makes drilling different size holes super easy.
Yeah. Well, and beyond just the fun of it, having the right tools, that can really make or break a project.
Oh, yeah.
Makes everything go smoother.
So, okay, let's get into the actual building process.
Mm.
The creator, they're really meticulous about, you know, prepping the container, marking everything carefully, drilling those holes for ventilation, all the wiring.
Right.
And they really, really emphasize doing it precisely, especially with the electrical stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's super important, right? I mean, it's not just about throwing it together.
Uh-huh.
You got to make it work, but it's got to be safe too.
Okay, now for the lights. This is interesting. So they actually experiment
Okay.
with a couple different types. They try like 6,400 Kelvin bulbs and then also dual spectrum LEDs.
Interesting.
It's just red and green, and they're comparing how those different light colors affect plants.
So for those who might not know, Kelvin, that measures the color temperature. So like higher Kelvin, that's cooler, more bluish light,
Right.
and lower Kelvin, that's warmer, more reddish. It's really cool that they're diving into like the actual science behind it.
Right.
Not just following instructions, but understanding how it works.
And the best part is they're like bringing us along for the ride.
Right.
They say they'll share updates as their like little plant jungle grows.
Oh, that's fun.
Love that.
Yeah, it's like a community, it
Mhm.
encourages other people to give it a try.
And when it comes to wiring those LEDs, they're really specific,
Mm.
like marking the positive ends so you don't mix them up.
Smart.
And they even solder the connections for extra security.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, soldering, that's way stronger than just twisting wires together.
Oh, yeah.
So it'll last longer, They're building this thing to last.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so now for the fan, our builder actually tries out a few different power supplies
Okay.
to find that sweet spot, for airflow and noise.
Makes sense.
Yeah, they end up going with a 9V supply.
That's a good point. Even in a simple project like this, there's always room to tweak things.
Right.
It's not just about the steps, but understanding why you're doing them.
Totally.
Our DIYer here, they're not afraid to experiment a little.
Oh, and their way of testing the airflow. Okay, get this. They just feel it with their hand.
Ah, classic.
Right. Super low tech, but hey, if it works.
Sometimes the simplest way is the best way.
So now we've got this container,
Yeah.
right? All tripped out with the fan, air holes, the LED lights.
Yeah.
It's all wired up and ready to grow some stuff. And they actually show us two boxes, one brand new, and then another one that's already got like a mini garden going.
That's also, it's so cool to see the actual results, right?
Yeah.
They've got tomatoes growing, lettuce, beetroot, peppers, even some melon seedlings.
Wow, melon seedlings.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can grow in a simple container like that.
It really shows you don't need a ton of space or fancy equipment to garden.
Exactly. And it kind of ties into this whole movement, right? Urban farming, sustainable living.
Okay, but here's my question. Like, I get the DIY spirit. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But wouldn't it just be easier to buy one of those, like, pre-made grow systems?
I see your point, but
Yeah.
those systems, they can be expensive, and you're kind of stuck with what they give you.
Yeah.
Building your own, you can customize it, make it the perfect size for your space, choose the lighting you want.
Right.
Plus, there's just something so satisfying about making it yourself.
Yeah, like it's the difference between, buying a frozen dinner and cooking a meal from scratch.
Totally. You're more connected to the process.
And this whole project really embodies that maker culture idea,
Oh, yeah.
the joy of creating, learning, sharing that knowledge.
It's about taking control, being creative.
This reminds me of when I tried building a bookshelf once.
Oh.
It was a total disaster. But I learned so much from it.
I think we learn the most from those mess-ups, right?
It's about the process, not just the end result.
And this creator, their enthusiasm is contagious,
Oh, yeah.
Makes you want to go grab some tools and start building something, even if you've never done it before.
I know, right?
What I really admire is that can-do attitude, They show you that you don't need to be an expert or have a fancy workshop to make something really cool.
Yeah, it really makes you rethink that whole I'm not a DIY person thing.
Right.
Anyone can do this with a little creativity, a little effort.
And this grow box, it's like a tiny example of something much bigger. This whole movement toward being more self-sufficient, living sustainably, getting back in touch with nature.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It reminds us that we can, grow our own food, rely less on those big industrial farms.
So what does all this mean for our listeners out there?
Well, we've covered a lot in this deep dive.
Yeah, we have.
We've seen how resourceful people can be, the fun of DIY, and how even these small projects, they can have real results.
We've talked about, paying attention to detail, experimenting, that feeling of accomplishment when you build something yourself.
And we touched on some bigger ideas too, right? Self-sufficiency, sustainability, that urge to connect with nature.
This grow box, it's like a symbol of taking charge.
Yeah.
It shows us we don't have to just buy everything. We can be the ones making things, growing our own food.
So as we wrap up here, I want to challenge everyone listening.
Okay.
Think about a DIY project you've been wanting to try.
Maybe it's this grow box, or maybe it's something totally different.
Yeah, maybe fixing that leaky faucet or finally learning to sew.
Whatever it is, just go for it. Have fun. And don't be afraid to, get your hands dirty. It makes you think, in a world where everything's mass-produced,
Right.
what's the value in creating things ourselves? Even if it's something as simple as a grow box made from a plastic container.
That's a great question to leave everyone with.
Until next time, happy building, everyone.